Yeah, I think we've had a real evolution over the last 10 to 15 years as historically the industry's been very focused on identifying molecules, whether it's a small molecule or an antibody that can treat a disease. But we've now shifted to with cell and gene therapies. We're moving beyond treatment to thinking about curative approaches. And whether that is cell therapies that can enable treating cancer and curing patients of that, or treatments for diseases.
Welcome to the Leading Minds podcast, where we delve deep inside the minds of the top life sciences executives. Join us as we unravel how they think, their vision for the industry, the purpose that drives them, and how they are moving the industry forward while fueling growth for their companies and their teams.
This is Leading Minds, and I'm your host, Jasmeets. In every episode, we meet a leader who has made a lasting impact in the life sciences industry and continues to drive the industry forward. We go beyond the name and the title to unravel their personality, their beliefs, their mission, and most importantly, to understand how their brilliant minds are changing the world for the better. Before we get started, I want to thank our exclusive sponsor, Axtria, a leading global provider of cloud software and data analytics solutions to the life sciences industry. Now, on to today's episode, I'm truly honored to introduce our guest, Dr. Devyn Smith. Devyn's career spans over 20 years, and he is considered an authority in cell and gene therapy development and platform expertise. He's currently the CEO of Arbor Biotechnologies and joined the company in 2021. Before Arbor Bio, he was the Chief Operating Officer of Sigilon Therapeutics. Prior to Sigilon, Devyn worked in a variety of roles at Pfizer, including Chief Operating Officer of the UK-based Nucentis unit, which was focused on discovering and developing cell therapies. He received his PhD in genetics from Harvard Medical School, and he's an inventor of multiple patents and has published in leading scientific journals throughout his career. He's also a board member and officer for Alliance for Regenerative Medicine, which is a leading industry group in the cell and gene therapy space. Devyn, thank you so much for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Devyn, you've had a remarkable journey in the life sciences industry. It will be great for the audience to learn about your professional journey, but also to understand a little bit about the lead up to your career. Things like your upbringing, where you grew up, early aspirations and inspirations, and educational background. Basically, things that influenced where you are today. Can you please share some details with our audience?
Yeah, no problem. I was born and raised in a small town in central Utah. And I was the fourth of 11 children, so a very large family.
Yeah.
And we were in a rural area, so we had very much a farm. And my brothers and I really enjoyed raising animals. And we'd often, in particular with chickens and birds, we would breed them and come up with these mixed animals. And it was really sort of an introduction to genetics for me. And it really, I think, stimulated a real interest in the opportunity to think about science and how the underlying genes can influence what, the phenotype or what someone looks like or what something looks like. So that was a real experience for me to do that. And so it inspired me to really start thinking about science and being able to do experiments where you could eventually help, the world, make the world a better place.
Wow. So that was your start to the genetics career, right? So to say, not really a career, but at that point, it must have been an interest that developed further. Tell me a little bit more about why were you looking to do genetics, as you must have gone to school where you studied about genetics. And I know you went to Harvard Medical School. So how did you go from that early childhood in raising animals and going into a career that is devoted to cell and gene therapy?
Going into undergrad, I did my undergrad at Brigham Young University. And going in there, I thought I wanted to probably be a physician because that was,
Yeah.
one of the things I knew you could be coming from a small town. There's not a lot of
Right.
job opportunities you see others doing. So physician sounded reasonable. I started that. And originally in the first semester there, I took a course where they brought in a different physician specialist. And at the end of every presentation, they would ask them if they would do it again. And every single one of them said no, they wouldn't, except one. And that was the one who was doing research, which really intrigued
Yep.
me. And so after that, I decided, okay, I'm not going to don't want to be an MD practicing. I'd rather really look into this research piece. So I then spent a couple semesters doing some research in a lab there, where we were just kind of scratching the surface on genetics and science in general. So learning lab techniques, those types of things. But it stimulated enough interest to want to continue after I graduated. So I did then moved on to a master's degree at Idaho State University in Idaho. And there, I actually had the opportunity to work with, his name's Trent Stevens, and he was very focused on embryonic development and what are the genes and influences that cause a single cell to turn into this very extremely complex individual. And we used chicken embryos as the model system. And that really gave me the introduction into molecular biology, genetics, and the impact of genes specifically on morphological characteristics or how something turns out at the end of the day. Why is your thumb always located where it is? Why is your pinky always on that side of your hand and not vice versa? All these types of characteristics we have that are all influenced by the genetic underpinnings in early embryogenesis. And that master's degree, a couple of years, was great training on understanding the underlying, elements of developmental biology that, allowed me to then move from there to Harvard to pursue my PhD.
Nice. There's some really incredible moments that have shaped your career. Now, let's delve deeper into your current role. Can you please share details about areas you're focused on today and some of your responsibilities and maybe priorities?
Yeah, so today, CEO of Arbor Biotechnologies, we are a CRISPR gene editing company. So CRISPR has been in the news a lot lately. It was discovered about 10 years ago that these people call them molecular scissors, but that you can actually utilize this particular protein to alter DNA, to cut it. Additional discoveries have shown you can actually cut and rewrite sections of DNA so you can replace mutations. And so Arbor was co-founded by Fong Zhang and David Walt, who are, Fong is a pioneer in the CRISPR space, and David Walt is a luminary in the high throughput automation space. So Arbor, our focus is on identifying novel, interesting, differentiated gene editing approaches that exist in nature. So in bacterial genomes across the world, and turning those into putative therapeutics. So for us as a company, being able to leverage the valuable things evolution has created in nature to turn those into therapies allows us to then think about how can we cure or treat genetic diseases that exist today. Genetic diseases like, ALS or Huntington's or hemophilia, diseases like that.
Right. And those are very impactful areas. And I'm pretty sure you're Arbor Bio and you're driving a lot of impact in the industry. And talking about that, the definition of the outcomes and impact has changed significantly as our industry goes through rapid evolution. What major shifts do you see in the industry and some of the key factors that are driving this change? And how does your work and Arbor Bio fit into this evolution?
Yeah, I think we've had a real evolution over the last, 10 to 15 years as historically the industry's been very focused on identifying molecules, whether it's a small molecule or an antibody that can treat a disease. But we've now shifted to with cell and gene therapies. We're moving beyond treatment to thinking about curative approaches. And whether that is cell therapies that can enable treating cancer and curing patients of that, or treatments for diseases like SMA, for example, there's a gene therapy that was approved, which has radically altered the life of these patients that previously would die at age 2. And so you're suddenly, I think, seeing this shift to where it's a pill a day and it, sort of mitigates some of the symptoms to here's a one-time treatment that can actually provide near curative efficacy to patients. And so I think it's really turned, the last 10 years, you're seeing this complete shift in the industry to where we're thinking about things that previously were unthinkable, which is being able to cure disease. And I think with
Right.
this new gene editing technology, it really allows us to think about in the future, can we actually change the mutation and change what could be a deadly disease back to a wild type or a regular non-disease phenotype. So I think this fundamental shift is going to radically alter the way we think about healthcare and treatment, in the coming years and decades, to where no longer will we, have to wait until one has symptoms for genetic diseases, but we can actually go in and fix the problem early on and, mitigate the actual disease effects downstream. So I think, that's where we're headed over the coming decades. I think that's going to be an absolute revolution in the way we think about treating disease and healthcare.
Yeah, you're very right. I mean, treatment for most part, managing symptoms to now curing them is the evolution that we are seeing. And I think you are playing an important role in this transformation, doing your work that you're doing at Arbor Bio and what you're doing with gene editing. I think that's where the future is. So many congratulations on that. Now, switching back to your professional journey, everyone's career has some key moments. Can you please share some of those moments from your journey, such as people, events, and decisions that have shaped your career or had an impact?
Absolutely. I can give you a couple of examples. When I was nearing the end of my PhD, I was at that pivotal point where I had to decide, do I want to do a postdoctoral fellowship and pursue an academic career, or do I want to do something different? And at the time, my PI was very supportive of exploring, options that, you don't have to necessarily follow a traditional path. You can explore other alternatives. And so at the time, I ultimately decided not to do a postdoctoral fellowship and went on to do a work in strategy consulting, where I could really leverage the experience of a PhD, the analytical thinking, and learn more about the business side of science. And so that was a pivotal moment for me, and having that supportive relationship and support from my PI really made a tremendous difference for me. And then as I moved on to do consulting for 8 years or so, I then shifted to Pfizer, as you mentioned. And there I had an extremely supportive mentor who really encouraged me to continue to build on the strength in cell and gene therapy that I'd established, not only my PhD, but also in my consulting work. And I eventually moved from the United States to the UK for a couple of years to work with this individual who she was such a great mentor and provided great opportunities for me to continue to expand my experience set, my leadership capabilities within the cell and gene therapy space. So that was another pivotal moment for me as well.
Thanks for sharing those moments, Devyn. Based on your journey and professional experience, what is your advice for industry professionals who are aspiring to be leaders of tomorrow? What are some key leadership attributes they should develop?
I think there are some really important attributes one can develop throughout your career, both through experience, but also, proactively gaining these experiences, these skill sets. So if I were to list a few, one I think is being able to learn how to have hard conversations, whether that's with your boss or with people who work for you or peers, and being able to have a conversation about things that are concerning to you, or you may disagree with something, and knowing how to do that in such a way that you can have that conversation with someone. Some people call it radical candor. I think that's an important leadership skill that we need to demonstrate as leaders, but also foster in those who work for us and with us so that we can have
Right.
harder conversations about things, because that's how we make our companies better. That's how we make our science better. And that's how we make ourselves better. So I think that's one important attribute for folks to build. A second attribute I would say is being able to think outside of your box. And what I mean by that is many times, when you're in a role in a company, you are in a box, if you will. There's certain things you are accountable for, certain things you're supposed to do. And I think being able to train yourself to think a little more broadly and to think more, some will call it enterprise-wide thinking. But how do I think about the impact of what I'm doing on other parts of the organization? How do the things I discover or accomplish here help the company as a whole? And beginning to really understand those broader threads, I think, is an important mark of a leader, because you have to think beyond sort of the box you're in and think broadly across the company and industry so you can really think strategically and bring those novel insights to bear. And so that's a second skill set I would certainly encourage.
Right. And Devin, I'll be very interested because you have a very unique journey, because you started from a very small town, right? And where you are today, I'm not sure how many people in small towns can imagine what you have achieved or where you are today. So, specific advice for actually people from small towns, and what are the things they should aspire to do and how they should approach that? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that is a great question. Growing up in a small town and large family, we were very poor. I think being able to, being able to envision doing something more than what you've seen sort of, folks in your town doing or your peers doing, or, the mentors you have, like, how do you, if you want to do something big, how do you do that? And that is a challenge, I think, for many folks, because you don't have the mentors, you don't have the examples you can look to and say, oh, that's something I can do. And I think now it's a much better space, because I think with things like the internet, one can begin to identify mentors and people who can, inspire and help you think about it. And I think it's finding those mentors and folks who are willing to believe in you and help you understand and see how you can go from where you are to where you want to be. And because there's many people who have done the journey and who are always willing and interested in helping others, see how they can achieve what they want to achieve. So, I think being willing to reach out, because there was a lot of folks out there who are willing to be helpful and encouraging and help you achieve your dreams.
That itself takes courage, being able to actually reach out to people and ask for help and put yourself in that position where you need help. I think that itself takes courage. And I think that actually talks about your journey in a way, the way I see it, because you took those steps and got out of your comfort zone to get that mentorship, to get that help. It's actually incredible how you have traveled, literally traveled, right? From a small town to where you are today, and traveled in your professional journey. And thank you for the amazing advice. I love the candid, radical candor. Love that phrase. I'm going to implement that definitely.
We'll continue the conversation after this quick message from our exclusive sponsor, Axtria.
Improving commercial and patient outcomes. That's our goal at Axtria. We are at the forefront of life sciences digital transformation with the most advanced cloud software and data analytics solutions, enabling companies to manage data, derive artificial intelligence-powered insights, and streamline business operations across the product lifecycle. Because of our deep expertise in the life sciences domain, we are the top choice for life sciences companies for their digital and business transformation initiatives. We work with all of the top global life sciences companies who consider us their true partners, driven primarily by our most important differentiators, our people, and our inclusive and progressive culture, which is focused on developing the life sciences leaders of tomorrow. With every project, we are helping our customers achieve commercial success. But more importantly, we are helping them improve health outcomes for patients. See what we can do for you at axtria.com.
Now, Devyn, I can imagine how busy you are with your current role and responsibilities. But as I talk to industry leaders, one theme is always consistent that regardless of where they are in their career, they want to and they continue to invest in learning and growth. Can you tell our audience your views on learning and growth and how you continue to do that despite your busy schedule?
I fully agree that is critical for all of us. And, some of the things I do, one is I have a stack of papers, of science papers on my desk, both at work and at home. And I'll read those when I have a free time. I think that's important to stay at the cutting edge of what's going on in the science. That's important for me and it helps me continue to learn. The other things I do, I participate in a book group in my town, once every quarter or so. Several of us get together, we read different books and talk about things. That's really helpful, not only from a work-life balance, but also to help continue to learn and develop the non-science part of my brain so it doesn't atrophy. And then the other thing I think that is also important is doing things from a service perspective, both in our space and outside of our space. So what I mean by that, so for example, as chairman of the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine today, that's a great opportunity to me to give back to the space, this broad industry group of 500 companies in the cell and gene therapy space, and how do we help bring the entire industry along? That's an important piece of a learning journey for me. And a second area is being able to, my family and I, we volunteered a homeless shelter once a month and help make breakfast for about 200 people. And things like that, I think also help us appreciate where we've come from and that helps us stay connected to the rest of the world because there's many people who aren't as fortunate and we can give back to. So I think that's all part of that learning journey, as you mentioned, that,
Right.
help us become connected across more than just our very small world we are in a day-to-day.
Right. And thanks for sharing those thoughts, Devyn. Everyone has their unique ways, but it's always interesting to learn how some of the leading minds like yourself continue their learning and growth. And you shared some of the very fundamental and real kind of examples of learning. A lot of people talk about, I read a lot on the web or a lot of books and all that. You talked about the scientific papers, which is important, right? And you talked about community service and you talked about the club. So you have like an idea exchange kind of going on in those spaces, right? Which is great. Now, on to a question that is important for all professionals, the balancing of personal and professional lives, especially in today's age when we are always connected. It would be great for the audience to understand your views on this and how you balance your personal and professional life.
Yeah, I think that's a constant challenge for all of us, as you said, in this day and age when we're always connected. Some of the things that I do is, when I am on vacation, we try to go places where you don't have as much connectivity, which forces you to really disconnect. So
Yeah.
my family, I do like to do a lot of hiking and climbing. So, we'll go, last summer we went and climbed Mount Whitney in Southern California, where you're forced to be disconnected for a multitude of days. And that's really
Right.
helps, I think, recharge, but also, connect with your family without devices. So I think things like that can really make a difference. And,
Right.
my son will drag me every winter to go hike up Mount Washington here in the Northeast, where you get all bundled up in your gear. You've got crampons and ice axe, and off you go. And you're not connected to the internet or anywhere. And those are great opportunities to physical challenges, but also allows you to build that mental strength.
Right. And I have to try that out because I've heard so much about that people pick vacations and places they go where there is actually no connectivity. And we are so dependent on internet today. I'm actually scared when there's no internet. So I really have to try this out one time to see how it goes. But thanks for sharing.
Yeah, you should definitely do that, Jasmine.
Yes, I definitely have to try it out because the more scared you are, that means more dependent you are. on connectivity. So have to get away to actually
Absolutely.
learn how to be without it. But yeah, thanks for sharing your thoughts on balancing the professional and personal lives. And you have to actually continue to achieve your goals on both ends, which is important. Now, on to the fun segment. I will be asking you some rapid fire questions that you will need to respond to quickly. Ready for that?
Absolutely. Let's go.
All right. Name your mentors. I know you talked about some of the mentors, but if anyone else you can mention, but name your mentor or mentors or someone who has inspired you.
I would name two mentors I didn't mention. One is Ruth McKernan, who was my boss at Pfizer, who was fantastic in really helping me see what the opportunity in cell and gene therapy, and also how do I develop as a leader. The other mentor is his name's Paul Watton. He was CEO at Sigilon and is a really talented and well-respected industry expert. So those two have really fundamentally helped me develop as a leader and as a person.
Awesome. What is the best advice you have received?
I would say the one piece of advice I constantly come back to is something my father used to tell me when I played football in middle school and high school. And he said, you're going to learn a lot of things, but remember, you need to roll with the punches. So every time you get hit, just get back up. And whether it's metaphorically, I think it is an important piece of advice for me that there are times when things get hard and you need to just get up and keep on going. And I think that's been a piece of advice that's stuck with me throughout my life.
Absolutely makes sense. What comes to mind when you hear the word leadership?
Leadership it can mean a lot of things, but one of the pieces I think that for me, the best leaders I've seen have been, I guess the term may be a servant leader, those who really serve the people they lead.
Mhm.
And that builds such loyalty and it builds a really strong culture with the folks they lead. I would say that to me is being able to serve those you lead to make sure, help them become better will help you and the company become better.
Now, you mentioned about hiking and going with your family to these places, but what do you do in your free time if there's something besides that?
Well, I mentioned chickens, so I do have chickens at home. So I've got a little flock
Oh,
of
wow.
chickens and I love to garden. So I've got a really nice, big garden. So I grow lots of nice things. So those are two things I enjoy doing.
So your love for chickens continues, right? From the childhood to now. That's amazing.
Absolutely. It's a theme through my
Yeah.
life.
Name your favorite book or books.
One of the favorite books I've had is Henry V. I play from Shakespeare. It's got some great quotes on leadership and
Mhm.
as well as it's just a wonderful story that Shakespeare has woven based upon the real life of Henry V. So I think that's one of the more inspiring things that I've read and have continued to read over time.
Nice. So you can have dinner with any person in the world. Who would be the three people you would pick?
The three people I think would be fascinating. I would pick Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Eleanor Roosevelt, as well as Abraham Lincoln. Now, the Roosevelts, I think, were a really interesting couple, a power couple that she did amazing things and he did amazing things, yet they, did it in the midst of significant challenges. And I think really inspirational couple and leaders for both, represent both men and women. I think it's fantastic. And Abraham Lincoln, I think, is just an absolutely amazing individual who was able to, hold the country together in tremendously trying times and, due to his leadership. And, and I also kind of like he came from a really small rural area and was really poor. So I can
Right.
relate to that. But he certainly is a wonderful example for all of us in this country and the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the last one person you believe is a leading mind in our industry and you would recommend featuring on this podcast.
Yeah, that is a really good question. I'd have two people. So our company is actually funded by Arch Venture Partners. And the two founders of Arch, Bob Nilsson and Keith Crandell, I think are two folks who've been in the industry for decades and have really had such a powerful influence on the types of companies that are started and how, the industry has where are those new technologies coming from? So those are the, two people I think have really had such a tremendous influence on our industry for decades. So those would be two people I would mention.
Awesome. Those are some amazing rapid fire responses, Devyn. Just love them. Thank you for sharing your story with us and the amazing guidance and advice you provided to the audience. You've had an incredible professional journey, and its impact, I believe, will be seen in the many decades to come because the area that you're working in is extremely, extremely important for the life sciences space and for the patients who need those therapies. So many congratulations, and thank you so much again. It has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you very much, Jasmine. It's been a pleasure and I appreciate it.
To the audience, you are the most important part of the show. Because of you, we are the top show in the life sciences industry. Thank you so much for joining us today, and tune in soon for the next episode of Leading Minds.
Thank you for listening to the Leading Minds podcast by Life Sciences Voice. Please share and hit subscribe with your favorite streaming platform. For more information, please visit our website at lifescivoice.com.